Building a marriage takes the right material, but these are not materials that can be purchased in a store. These materials have to be matured and cultivated on the inside. The Marriage Material Podcast Show was created to help listeners grow and mature in areas that are important to building and maintaining a healthy marriage and relationships. You are listening to the Marriage Material Podcast Show, and here's your host, Pastor Darius Good.
Thank you for joining us on today. You're listening to another episode of the podcast show, Marriage Material. We focus on relationships, whether that's dating, whether you're engaged or even married, this platform is for you. To learn more about this show, visit our website, dariusgood.com. And there we have information regarding this podcast show as well as other podcast shows that I put together. We have a podcast show on Christians that are divorced. That show is doing extremely well. That information is very helpful for those that have gone through that particular experience. We also have another platform called Good Treasure Podcast Show, where I give my teachings, whether it's a Sunday morning service, sermon, or even my Bible studies that we usually do on Fridays here at the church. But this platform, we like to focus on relationships because we've seen so much dysfunction. And one of the keys to changing and breaking cycles is knowledge and understanding. Otherwise, we just keep doing the same behavior over and over, or it kind of manifests in a different way, but it's really the same cycle. And so it's interesting when I look at two different generations. One generation many times is copying the previous generation, but they're making a full effort not to repeat what the previous generation did. And yet we still fall in an area of dysfunction. And so these are the things that we like to highlight so that relationships can be stronger, they can be long lasting, and most importantly, fulfilling. I am tired of us celebrating relationships that are just long lasting but are not fulfilling. And so we're making these adjustments in our lives, our thinking, and in our mindsets when it comes to relationships. We need strong, healthy, loving relationships. In episode number 7, we took a look at a relationship where the woman went into the relationship seeking to marry this man, but she wanted to make some changes to him. So there were some things that she really liked about him, but other things that she felt she should change. She wanted to alter. And we talked about the dangers of that sort of mindset. But what's interesting is I came across a post on social media. And in the post, there was a young lady, and she said at the age of 12, she finally met her father, and he took her out for lunch and set her down. And he told her that he never wanted to have children, and this is why he's not in her life. That he had told her mother he did not want to have children, and so he's not a part of her life, has no interest in developing a relationship with her, and it was just something that she just kind of had to deal with. And so at this point, she's a grown woman, and as she is telling this story on this podcast show, you can see the hurt in her eyes, and you can also spot in the body language. When I look at this woman, what I see is a 12-year-old child. I see a child that's hurt and broken. And what's interesting is in her identifying the moment of sitting there with her father, having this conversation, you can tell that her spirit was wounded. And if we're paying attention, looking through a spiritual lens, you could recognize that that's when she was wounded and emotional growth began to stop around that point. I dare to say, in my experience as a pastor, that any man that dates this woman is going to have to deal with daddy issues. You're going to have to understand that this woman's broken, that she's hurt, and that she's looking in every relationship for a fulfillment that she didn't get as a child with her father. And that is very important, that any man entering into a relationship with this woman or other women that have similar experiences understand the type of relationship they're about to have. So the host of the show asked her, how do you feel about it? And she says, well, it is what it is. And I'm just not going to be there for him when he dies. That's a very interesting statement, because that means that there is still a sense of connection, a sense of love, and yet you're still making the choice that I'm not going to be there for him. It's interesting because your response should have been, I have no relationship with this man. And so I moved on with my life, and yet that was not her response. And so you see there's a bond that is still present between daughter and father, even though that relationship was never built. These ties are there. We talk about soul ties, and we often think of soul ties in the sense of, a dating relationship, a marriage relationship, maybe a father and daughter, or father and child, mother and child. But in this sense, you may say, well, there wasn't necessarily a soul tie built because of the lack of relationship. But I say no. It's just a spiritual connection between parent and child. I've heard stories of children that, adopted, that met their parents later on in life, and there was a connection there. So there seems to be the spiritual bonds, the ties that tie the soul, they're really in different levels. Some are extremely weak. And then for a person to say, well, I met my parents, I didn't care or felt anything for them, that's a very, very, very weak bond or tie. But the fact that you had to check to see if there's any sort of emotional response tells you there is a tie there that is present, because we don't do that with strangers. I do not meet a stranger and have to check to see if there's any tie or bond present. Do I have any emotional feelings towards them? You don't do that with strangers. But in this case, when it comes especially to relatives and other things, it's interesting how we have these unspoken ties. They're both spiritual, they're both emotional, and it's a result of the DNA that connects us and binds us together. DNA, I believe, is way more than physical. It's spiritual in essence. And the interesting thing is it can be rewritten. DNA can be rewritten. And so with this being said, as I'm watching this post, I immediately went to the comments. And so you see the comments from people in regards to the father, how maybe he was dead wrong for his response for what he did. They see the hurt in this woman. And so they're recognizing and commenting along these particular lines. But what I did not see was any comments regarding the mother. And this is what jumped out to me as I'm listening to this conversation. There's three people a part of this equation. We got the child, who's a grown woman. We have the father, and we have mom. And the father explained that I told your mother I did not want to have children. I don't know why she's absolved from this experience, but if she knew that, then she should have approached this relationship very different. What she should have did was, if she wanted to have children, she should have been with a man that wanted children. You do not have children with a man that's not interested. You do not have children with a woman that's not interested. You end up with dysfunction. Is it always dysfunction? No, because many times you can have a man or a woman that has enough maturity and character and the ability to put the child in a position where they can be raised in a healthy environment, where they're praised and they're built up, as opposed to being torn down and degraded as a result of the parent's state of mind. So the environment that the child is raised in is very important. But now we have a child longing for a relationship with their parent. Every child really isn't that way. But for the most part, this is quite normal. Children are going to ask about their parent, the one that is missing. And understand this, a present parent, one that's physically present, does not mean that they are emotionally present. And that's another conversation, a major problem that I've seen in relationships that also leads to dysfunction. But this woman decided to have a child with a man that clearly said, this is not what I'm interested in, and I do not want it. And once again, we have a woman, and we can come up with several different reasons. Maybe she herself wanted a child, but that's selfish. Maybe she thought once this child gets here, he'll change. Once again, you're trying to change somebody. You have to hear what people are saying to you. I've learned to trust what they're saying to me and have no expectation of them ever changing. If they do, then I'll make some adjustments once they change. But usually when people tell you who they are or what they are, we always hear this, you should believe them. And so now this woman produces a child with a man, and we have a child who is now an adult, a grown woman that is broken as a result of mom's decision. Dad never changed. Dad was brutally honest. And just because you don't like his honesty, you don't like his stance, his opinion, his reasoning. And here's the interesting thing is, no one questioned the father's reasoning. We often feel dad should step up to the plate. He created the child. Well, he should. If you're going to have sex, there's consequences. Sex produces children. But sometimes when I've learned the mindset of the parent, I'm thinking you should have never had children. So maybe dad's reasoning for not wanting to father a child is because he himself's not in a good place. He's not emotionally there, prepared, mature. And so now he understands the struggle I will cause my child to go through by me being in their life. Maybe he made the mature decision. And yet mom made a selfish decision. And now the child has to pay the price of these two parents. So it's important that we don't just jump to conclusions as we hear these sound bites. We really need to think through our thinking, our reasoning of why we do or don't do certain things. Why am I interested or not interested in certain things? And then we got to process what effect would I have on anyone else around me. We can't live life with a selfish mentality where my decisions, my actions only affects me. It doesn't. This world is very similar to like a pool table that has all these balls on the table. And as these balls move in different directions and they collide with one another, they have contact with one another, that contact changes the direction of that ball. In this case, lives have been changed as a result of contact. You're going to have contact with a lot of people, and so your decisions will have a direct effect on those people. And so when it comes to relationships, a person that you're saying, I want to spend my life with, whether dating or especially engaged, these are conversations that need to be had. If a man says, I only want 1 or 2 children, don't decide to have 4. If a woman says, I only want 1 or 2 children, don't think we're going to have 4. And this is a major problem I've seen as people feel that they can alter the person they're dating. If you go into the relationship thinking this is what it is and what I'll end up with, if you can't live with that, then you need to move on. And true maturity and true love will say, listen, I love you, but we're not compatible. These are the things that I desire. These are the things that you desire. And this may not work for you and I. What's interesting is look where this couple ended up. They're not together, and you have a broken child. And so what's the end result of trying to enter into a relationship thinking we can change people? Usually, I'll say 9 times out of 10, that approach never works. It just doesn't work. And so people will be what they are, and what they'll end up doing is resenting you later for deciding to agree with you. They're going to say, I knew I shouldn't have done it. There's a reason why I decided I didn't want that. And some of that is because of hurt, and some of that is because of brokenness. I've seen people change once people are healed, but usually people will not go through the process of being healed. They don't want to put in the work necessary to be healed. And usually it's not as much work as what people think. But if you don't get healed, then it's important that we're hearing what people are saying, because they will never change. And then we're left in this place of brokenness and disappointment. And so we have people like this woman, both men and women, growing up with issues because a parent did not listen. We have to date better. How do we date better? By listening. Don't hear what you want to hear. Listen to what the person is saying. If you have an interest in the person, then that means you should be interested in what they're saying and how they think, and understanding their character and their nature. If they're a runner, meaning that they're in relationships for a short period of time and they move on, these are notes that you should be taking. These are things that you should be paying attention to if you're dating, or especially if you're engaged, because you're about to marry somebody with all these characteristics. People say we end up marrying a stranger. Yeah, they're strange to you because you didn't date right. You focused on the physical. You focused on the date, the location, the place, the vacation, creating the memories, but you never took the time to look at the individual that you have. Who is this person that I'm now committing myself to, that I will be committed to? Because they may not have the character that you think. They might have actually told you the truth, and you're thinking in your head, well, we can fix this, we can change this, and I'm telling you, you can't. You're going to breed nothing but hurt, disappointment, and resentment. And so thank you for joining us on today. This is our podcast show, Marriage Material. Please like our episodes. Please share our episodes with anyone that you think this will be beneficial to. Visit the website when you get a chance, dariusgood.com. That's DariusGood.com. Check out my other podcast shows as well as my books. And until next time, be blessed.
You have been listening to the Marriage Material Podcast Show with your host, Darius Good. This was a Good Treasure Ministries production. Darius is a senior pastor of Bible Gospel Center and the author of the book, Soul Ties. To learn more about this book and other books written by Darius, or to listen to other episodes, visit our website today at dariusgood.com. Please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast show. And until the next time, be blessed.